You were the biggest mistake of my life." Those were the exact words my mother spat across the kitchen table one quiet night. Her eyes were sharp, her voice steady, and her hands didn't even tremble as she drove the knife of her sentence straight into my chest. For 32 years, I had dreaded hearing those words out loud. And now, here they were. Raw, undeniable, and final. But instead of breaking, instead of shattering into pieces like she wanted me to, I did the one thing she never expected. I smiled. That smile wasn't out of joy or madness. It was a release. For decades, I had carried the invisible chains of her bitterness, convinced that if I worked harder, achieved more, stayed smaller, maybe, just maybe, she would finally love me. But when those 6 words fell like stones between us, I realized the truth. She had never hated me. She had hated herself. And I was simply the mirror she couldn't stand to look at. The air in the kitchen tightened. She expected me to crumble, to beg, to apologize for existing. Instead, my calm unnerved her. She slammed her cup down, demanding, "What's so funny?" My smile widened just enough to make her flinch, because in that moment I knew something she didn't. She had lost her power over me. But how do you reach a point where your own mother looks you in the eye and calls you her greatest mistake? To understand, you need to go back. Back to the perfect little blue house with white shutters, back to the report cards that were never good enough, back to the birthdays spent alone with a candle and silence. That night in the kitchen wasn't the beginning. It was the final straw in a story years in the making. And if you've ever been underestimated, ignored, or made to feel like you don't belong, then this story isn't just mine. It's yours too. Before we dive into the rest, tell me in the comments, have you ever been hurt by the words of someone you loved? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Because trust me, the smile was just the beginning. Before my mother became the woman who called me her biggest mistake, she was someone else entirely. Amanda was once the crown jewel of our small Iowa town. Miss Cedar Rapids, 1989. Blonde curls, flawless smile, a sash across her chest that made every neighbor beam with pride. She carried herself like the world already belonged to her. And in her mind, it did. Runways in New York, magazine covers, flashing cameras, that was her future. She was certain of it. But the future doesn't always ask for permission before it changes. At 22, she found herself staring at a positive pregnancy test. And just like that, the runway turned into a kitchen floor, the applause into gossip whispered over fences. By the time she gave birth to me, the modeling contracts had slipped away, and so had the man who promised forever. She never forgave herself, but she never forgave me either. I grew up in the shadow of a woman who still saw herself as a queen dethroned. Every wrinkle was my fault, every missed opportunity, every silent regret. She pinned it all on me like I was the villain of her story. At night, I'd hear her whisper to the mirror as she traced the lines on her face. I could have been somebody. And then her eyes would flick to my reflection in the hallway. The message was clear. I was the reason she wasn't. So I learned early. Perfection was the price of survival. Straight A's, polished shoes, a spotless room. If I could be flawless, maybe I could erase her bitterness. Maybe I could earn the love she never gave freely. But perfection didn't buy me affection. It bought me silence. When I brought home report cards lined with A's, she barely looked up. "That's expected, Nora," she'd say. When I won the spelling bee, she scolded me for slouching. Every victory I achieved turned into another reminder of how I still wasn't enough. And yet, through all of it, I clung to one fragile hope. That if I could become everything she wasn't, maybe she'd finally see me. Maybe she'd finally smile at me the way she smiled at herself in that crown. But instead, the older I grew, the sharper her words became, and the deeper her silence cut. The outside of our house looked like a postcard. Blue paint, white shutters, flowers that bloomed neatly every spring. But inside, it was a stage where I never got a role. By 13, I had perfected the art of disappearing. My mother didn't have to say I was invisible. She showed me every single day. Take my 16th birthday. Most girls my age were unwrapping gifts, blowing out candles surrounded by friends and laughter. Me? I sat alone at the kitchen table with a single cupcake I bought myself on the way home from school. The cashier had asked, "Big night planned?" I lied and said yes. The truth? There was no party, no balloons. Just a note taped to the fridge in my mother's sharp handwriting. Working late. Leftovers inside. I lit one candle. Sang to myself in a whisper. Made a wish I knew wouldn't come true. To be seen. To matter. But in that house, wishes evaporated like smoke. She remembered every detail of her own beauty queen days, the exact shade of her lipstick, the songs played during her parade. But she forgot my spelling bee. She forgot my science fair. She even forgot my first piano recital, showing up only at the end to complain about parking. Even when she was there, she wasn't. If I got an award, she skimmed it like a bill she didn't want to pay. If I spoke at dinner, her eyes slid past me like I was furniture. And slowly, I began to believe her silence. Maybe I was unworthy. Maybe being overlooked was all I deserved. The only person who ever made me feel real was my Aunt Jasmine. She'd slip into my life like sunlight through a crack, bringing warm hugs and whispered promises. "You're special, Nora. Don't you forget it." I clung to her words like a lifeline, replaying them in my head when the silence of the house got too heavy. But no matter how hard I tried to shrink myself, no matter how many rules I followed, nothing changed. I wasn't the golden child. I wasn't the beauty queen. I was the mistake she never stopped punishing. And yet, buried under all that pain, a seed was growing. A quiet defiance I didn't even know I had, one that would finally break the silence years later. Leaving for college felt less like moving and more like surfacing after years underwater. I still remember the hum of the bus that carried me out of Cedar Rapids, past the same blue house with its perfect shutters. I didn't look back. My dorm room at Northwestern was barely bigger than a closet, shared with a girl who owned more shoes than I had outfits. But to me, it was paradise. There were no sharp eyes watching, no voice reminding me that I was unwanted. For the first time in my life, the air didn't choke me. I unpacked slowly, savoring every moment. A pillow that was mine. A desk where I could stack books without being told they were clutter. Even the squeak of my twin bed felt like freedom. The first night, I lay awake listening to laughter echoing from the hallway. I wasn't ready to join yet, too used to being the outsider. But still, I smiled. That sound wasn't aimed at me. It wasn't cruel. It was life happening, and I had a ticket in. Classes were hard, but I was used to hard. The difference was now my effort mattered. Professors noticed. Classmates leaned in when I spoke. For once, my voice didn't vanish into the wallpaper. By sophomore year, I found a calling. Volunteering at an after-school program in Chicago, I worked with third graders, wide-eyed, eager, desperate for attention. They tugged at my sleeve, begged me to read one more story, one more game of spelling. In their laughter, I saw pieces of myself. Children who just wanted to be seen. Teaching wasn't glamorous, but it filled me with a warmth my mother's approval never could. When I told Amanda I was switching my major to education, her voice over the phone turned ice cold. "Teachers are broke, Nora. You're too smart to waste it like that." For the first time, I didn't bend. Not every decision was about money. Some were about meaning, and I was finally choosing meaning. But independence wasn't the only new discovery. Because just when I thought I was learning how to stand alone, someone walked into my life who made me question everything I believed about love, loyalty, and what I truly deserved. I met James on a rainy Tuesday. I was balancing an overstuffed backpack, a dripping umbrella, and a stack of lesson plans when the elevator doors nearly closed on me. A hand shot out, steady, sure, holding them open. "Rough day?" His voice was warm, the kind that didn't pry but invited. He had curly brown hair plastered to his forehead from the rain, glasses slipping down his nose, and a smile that felt like sunlight through storm clouds. For once, I didn't shrink back. I laughed, awkward but real. James was different from anyone I'd known. He listened. Not the way my mother had, searching for mistakes, but with patience, with genuine interest. When I spoke, he didn't interrupt. He leaned in, like every word mattered. We started small, coffee after class, late-night study sessions that turned into storytelling marathons. I told him about teaching, about the way kids' eyes lit up when they sounded out a word for the first time. He told me about his love for architecture, about how buildings were like promises, meant to protect. One night, after I admitted the truth about my mother, the icy remarks, the endless criticism, he said something I'll never forget. "You don't owe her for being born. That was her choice, not yours." The words hit me harder than any insult Amanda had ever thrown. Simple, steady, undeniable. My whole life, I had been carrying her disappointment like a debt. And here was James, tearing up the ledger in one sentence. For the first time, I believed it. For the first time, I believed in me. But introducing him to my mother was a disaster. Amanda's eyes roamed him like he was hers to claim. And later, when we were alone, she sneered, "Hold on to this one. He's probably the best you'll get." Her poison dripped even into love. I wanted to crawl into the floor, to disappear. But James just reached across the car on the drive back, squeezed my hand, and whispered, "I get it now. I really get it." And he did. He saw the storm I lived in, and he didn't flinch. But storms don't fade quietly. They gather, they break. And Amanda wasn't done with me yet. Graduation day was supposed to be mine, the culmination of sleepless nights, endless study sessions, and sacrifices no one saw. I had worked harder than ever, not just for the degree, but for the freedom it symbolized. That cap and gown weren't just fabric. They were armor, proof that I could build a life beyond Amanda's shadow. The morning sun burned hot over the stadium. Families waved balloons, cheered, clutched bouquets. My classmates' names echoed through loudspeakers as proud parents stood, clapping, crying, beaming with love. And then there was me. Amanda arrived late, as always, sweeping into the stands in a dress far too glamorous for the occasion, sunglasses masking her eyes. She didn't wave when she spotted me, didn't smile. She just sat, arms folded like she was enduring a chore. When my name was called, Nora Reynolds, summa cum laude, the crowd erupted. My professors stood. My friends cheered until their voices cracked. But when I turned toward the stands, searching desperately for her reaction, Amanda didn't move. Not even a polite clap. She picked up her phone, scrolled. I swallowed hard, my diploma trembling in my hands. The heat pressed down like punishment. Every joyful sound around me blurred, muffled, as if the world was celebrating someone else. Later, outside the stadium, my classmates were wrapped in hugs, arms heavy with flowers. James handed me roses, his smile proud enough for 10 people. For a moment, I let myself feel it, the triumph, the joy, until Amanda appeared. She glanced at the roses, then at James. "Beautiful day," she said coolly, though really, these ceremonies drag on forever. I nearly melted in that heat. No mention of my speech, no congratulations, no pride, just complaints about the weather. I felt something inside me harden, a small, silent death of hope. It was the last time I waited for her approval. That night, as we sat in a crowded restaurant, she waved away the server before I could order dessert. "She doesn't need it," Amanda said, her voice cutting across the table. "She's already had enough sugar for one lifetime." Laughter rolled from a nearby table, but mine was the only plate left empty. It was then I realized, no achievement, no moment, no milestone would ever soften her edges. But the real breaking point wasn't that she dimmed my triumph. It was that, in that moment, I swore I'd never let her steal my light again. Madison, Wisconsin. A small apartment on the second floor, sunlight spilling through lace curtains, books stacked high on thrift store shelves. For the first time in my life, the air felt breathable. No footsteps pacing the hall, no icy voice echoing down the stairs. Just silence, and it belonged to me. I decorated slowly, with care. A plant on the windowsill. A chipped mug that read, "Best teacher ever." Lesson plans scattered across the table. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. And teaching, God teaching, was everything. My third graders clung to me like sunflowers chasing light. They laughed at my corny jokes, trusted me with their secrets, and looked at me with a hunger I recognized too well, the hunger to be seen, to matter. Every time their eyes lit up, I healed a little piece of myself. For once, I was building a life not to impress Amanda, but to feed my own soul. I thought I was free. Until the call came. It was a Tuesday night. Red pen in hand, I was marking spelling tests when my phone buzzed. Aunt Jasmine's name lit up the screen. Her voice was tight, urgent. "Nora, your mom collapsed at work. They think it's her heart." The pen slipped from my hand. Papers scattered to the floor. My chest tightened, not just with fear, but with guilt, resentment, confusion, all tangled like barbed wire. Is she going to be okay?" My voice cracked. "They think so. But she's asking for you. Asking for me." After years of silence, scorn, and venom, she wanted me now. By dawn, I was on the road back to Cedar Rapids. The miles blurred into gray, every exit sign a reminder of the life I had run from. My chest felt heavier with each town I passed, as if the closer I came, the more her shadow pressed down again. When I walked into that hospital room, I almost didn't recognize her. Amanda looked small against the stiff white sheets, her hair fading, her skin pale. But her eyes, those sharp, judgmental eyes, still held their edge. "You didn't have to drive all this way," she rasped, her voice weaker but still laced with frost. "No, thank you. No warmth. Just a reminder that even my care was unwanted." And yet I stayed. Cooking her meals, folding her laundry, driving her to checkups. 2 weeks passed on that old pull-out sofa in my childhood room. I thought maybe, just maybe, proximity would bring us closer. But I didn't know yet that being home would only uncover truths I was never meant to find. The attic smelled of dust and forgotten years. I had gone up there searching for sweaters. It was cold, and the hospital runs left me shivering at night. But what I found instead wasn't warmth. It was the truth my mother had buried. In the far corner, under yellowed holiday decorations and cracked photo frames, sat a cardboard box. Its label, written in her looping handwriting, read just one word: before. My hands shook as I pulled it closer. The cardboard groaned like it hadn't been touched in decades. Inside, at first, it looked harmless. Old photographs of Amanda on stage, ribbons from county dance competitions, programs with her name listed under soloist. In those photos, she was alive. Light in her eyes, hair catching the spotlight, a girl who believed the world was waiting for her. Beneath the photos lay a letter, thick cream paper with a bold header, New York School of Dance. Congratulations, you've been accepted. The date stopped me cold. It was just 3 months before I was born. And tucked beneath that acceptance letter, tied with ribbon, were more letters. My father's handwriting, elegant but sharp. At first, they read like love letters. "You'll be the most beautiful mother. This child will be our fresh start." But as I read on, the tone shifted. His words turned venomous. "You'll never let me forget what you gave up for this baby. You ruined your chance, Amanda. Don't put that blame on me." Each line cut me deeper. It wasn't just me she hated. It was her own reflection, her broken dreams, her choices. And she had made me the scapegoat. For the first time, I saw her not as a mother, but as a girl who once stood on the edge of a dream and chose bitterness instead of healing. She hadn't just lost New York, she had lost herself. I sat frozen on the attic floor, letters trembling in my hands. The truth was heavier than any insult she'd ever thrown at me. I finally understood why her eyes hardened whenever she looked at me. I was living proof of the life she believed had been stolen. When I came back downstairs, she was at the kitchen table, scrolling her phone, sipping tea like nothing had changed. But everything had. I no longer saw her as a mother I needed to please. I saw her as a woman too broken to love me. The pasta was boiling, steam rising in the small kitchen, fogging the windows. I stirred slowly, trying to ignore the weight pressing down on my chest. For 2 weeks I had been here, cooking every meal, driving her to appointments, folding her laundry, and still, every word from her mouth came sharpened like a knife. I set the plate in front of her. Simple spaghetti, garlic, olive oil, warm, filling. She didn't even look at it before sneering. "Pasta again? Twice in 1 week. Too much to ask for a little variety?" Something inside me cracked. The fork in my hand rattled against the pot. My pulse hammered. My voice came out steadier than I felt. I've been here for 2 weeks, Mom. Cooking every meal, driving you, doing everything. I can't read your mind. Her head snapped up, eyes blazing. Oh, so now you want a medal? You want gratitude for doing the bare minimum? Her voice rose, venom spilling faster than I could breathe. After everything I gave up for you, raising you alone, sacrificing my life, this is how you repay me? And then it came. The words I had feared since childhood. Her tone dropped, sharp and final, each syllable a hammer. You were the biggest mistake of my life. The kitchen went silent. Even the boiling water seemed to hold its breath. For a moment, my chest caved in. 32 years of suspicion, dread, and quiet desperation, all confirmed in 6 words. But then something shifted. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I smiled. Because hearing it out loud didn't break me. It freed me. Her eyes narrowed at the curve of my lips. What are you smiling at? She spat. I set the knife down, turned off the stove. My hands no longer trembled. You've told me my whole life what you gave up. Dancing, New York, your dreams. But here's the truth, Mom. You chose. I didn't. I never asked to be born. I never asked you to give up anything. And I don't deserve punishment for existing. Her face faltered. A flicker of confusion. Fear, maybe. For once, she didn't have a script ready. I stepped closer, my voice calm, steady. You hate me because you never forgave yourself, and I'm done carrying that weight. The smile stayed on my face, not because I was happy, but because I was free. Her chair scraped back against the tile as she stood, hands shaking. So that's it? You walk away, just like him? Her voice cracked, desperation leaking through the usual steel. I turned at the doorway, the old wooden frame that had caged me for decades. My bag was slung over my shoulder, heavier with freedom than with clothes. This isn't just one fight, Mom. This is 32 years of silence, insults, and blame. You called me a mistake. I inhaled deeply, steady. But I survived despite you, and now I'm taking back my life. For once, she had no words, no insult sharp enough, no manipulation smooth enough, just silence, the kind that finally belonged to me. I stepped outside. The night air cut cold against my skin, but it felt clean, like a baptism. Every breath a release, every step a way of victory. I didn't look back, not at the peeling paint of the house, not at the window where she used to stand and watch me fail. I walked straight to my car, hands steady, heart fierce. By the time I reached Aunt Jasmine's porch, the tears came. 32 years of swallowed grief pouring out in one storm. She didn't ask questions. She just held me. And for the first time, I wasn't invisible. The next morning, I wrote a letter. Not for her, but for me. And for the little girl who once whispered wishes over a single candle. I was never your mistake. I was your chance. You just never took it. But I did. I left the letter on her table. A mirror she couldn't avoid. Weeks passed before an email arrived. Just one line. I read your letter. I haven't stopped crying. It wasn't an apology, not yet. But it was the first crack in her armor, proof that my smile had cut deeper than her cruelty ever could. And me? I went home to my third graders, to laughter that filled every corner of my classroom, to a life stitched with peace, purpose, and love. Because I finally understood, her words said everything about her wounds and nothing about my worth. So if you've ever been crushed by family's cruel words, remember this. You are not their mistake. You are their reckoning. If this story touched you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, what is the most powerful boundary you've ever set with family?